Azwanga pomwana kumama papaye. Eyawe kumama papaye. Kisi ya soni kumama papaye. Azwanga pomwana kumama papaye. Eyawe kumama papaye. Kisi ya soni kumama papaye.
Hi, good evening. This is Linda Banks. Tonight, there's no script, there's no facade. I'm just going to tell you a story about three women, a true story. Two women who had met before, but one of them had not met. Two were actually best friends, but their lives, for some bizarre reason, are linked in a bit of tragedy. The story I will share with you is a difficult story. It's a very emotional and tragic story. I'll start with a story of a 22-year-old woman who was a newlywed, got married, marital bliss, was married to this very intelligent guy. Her name was Margaret, and that woman was my mother. And her husband was what you would call now as a shushushu, worked in the government, and was employed in the Kaunda regime. He was very young. For some bizarre reason, they used to marry quite early those days, 18, 19, 20. Someone was already married. Got married, and they were only married for a few months. He was sent on a mission, and he never came back. He came back in a bag with just his torso, just his leg. And that leg was identified by this young woman who was my mom, because he was killed by a landmine. And he was identified because my mom had prepared a pair of socks for him that morning. And that's the only reason why they got to identify him. And another story I'm going to tell you about is about this young woman who was heavily pregnant when her husband left. And this man left to go on a mission. He was a pilot. And he went with the national team of who you know that they perish in the at the coast of Libreville, Gabon. So this is going to be a very tricky story to tell. It's not my story, but for some bizarre reason, three women's stories, women who never met, who never knew each other. We got to know each other through the power of social media. And for some reason, our stories kind of are interlinked. And my guest today is an incredibly brave woman, a woman who has been through a lot, who has suffered incredible loss. And it's just going to be how it's going to be, really. So that, like I said earlier, there's no script. I would like to introduce Pamela Mubanga. So Pamela Mbanga's husband was the pilot of that flight that crashed at the coast of Libreville, Gabon. Pamela, welcome to the program.
Good evening, Linda. And
We
good
have
evening,
practiced
everybody.
this. It didn't work. We cried an awful lot, and we thought, let's just go for it. How are you feeling? So yesterday was how many years?
Today, actually, is 29 years.
29 years. 29 years since that fateful day.
29 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just tell me, can you recollect the events of that fateful day, 29 years today? Where were you? What were you wearing? What were you doing?
He started off 29 years ago, yesterday.
Yeah.
I think the plane should have started off in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, there was so much delay, and our home was very near to where he worked. I think it was just a 5 minutes walk to his office, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
he
So,
worked.
yeah.
So the plane was delayed from morning to about, I think, 2 o'clock, somewhere there. So the whole morning up to part of the afternoon before he left, he came back home, I think, 6 times, because I was expecting, and I was due in, I think, 4 days' time, like 1st, 2nd May, somewhere there.
Mm-hmm.
So he was actually very anxious about everything that was going on. He's going away, the baby, leaving me alone at home, and just everything. It was just, there was something funny about that morning, mid-morning. So he went, came back, came back, called twice, came back. Then finally, he left. I remember him walking out, stopping on the window, opening the window from outside. He pulled the window from outside and said, "Oh, well, I've just remembered something. I am leaving, but before I leave, I am going to call Norman Sumbwe, Ian Chimpampwe, and Ian Chimpampwe's wife, Leah. Leah was a nurse. I think she was a lieutenant then. The other two were majors. So he called them before he finally left, and then we met on the roadside. He walked to the road to meet them. I remember Norman drove a Caravelle bus. So this Caravelle bus came on the roadside. He walked to the road and then called out for me to walk out to the road. And then we all stood on the road as he gave instructions. Then he told Norman, payday was the following day on the 28th. He said, "You go to the bank for me, go to Zanaco, get some money for her so that she can go and buy what else she needs to buy." Meantime, I think the previous weeks he'd been to South Africa. So he had already bought a lot of things for the baby. The only thing that was missing was a bath, a basin for the baby. So,
and that was your firstborn baby you were expecting. You were a young bride.
Yes, that I was 22.
Yeah. Similar age to my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that conversation, we bid our farewells. Norman even joked about something. Then he left. He looked back, waved, walked a bit, waved back, and then he left. Following morning, they had gone. Following morning, my mother came. My mother came. We drove to town. We walked into Chachacha Discount Center because I think that's where it's the basin that I was looking for. Fortunately, in that shop, there was a friend of mine from school. There was a friend of mine I went to school with called Shekiwe Jerry. Shekiwe was standing in the doorway. When she saw me, we sort of joked a bit, but I couldn't talk much because I used to spit. So my mother was holding a can of spit, and then I was trying to say something. Each time I tried to say something, I'd spit and then tell her what I was looking for. But it took a long time for me to stop spitting in that few minutes that were there. Then my mother just took over and then told her what we were looking for. And then I was standing, I was heavily pregnant. Then I leant against some rail or something. And then just when Shekiwe was trying to find the basin, I remember my mother became very, apprehensive, like, "We should go." I said, "But why should we go? We've just come. Yeah. Why can't we do our business and then go?" She said, No, let's go. There was a radio in the shop that was now airing the accident about 11ish, I think. My mother just wanted to go. She didn't even want to spend another minute. She just said, "Let's go."
Yeah.
I said, "Bye." Then we go. Then she bought. I think there was no compromise on that. Then she bought and said, "Let's go." We got into a taxi with my mom. The taxi driver was also listening to something on radio. My mother was listening to that, but I was absent-minded. I didn't even realize what was going on. And I think what saved me to not hearing what was going on is because I was preoccupied with my speed.
Mm-hmm.
So we drove to a filling station at Ajib, Northland. It was Ajib then.
Yeah.
So the taxi driver told the fuel attendant how much petrol he wanted. This guy put full tank.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was also in a frenzy, I think. He put full tank because he had already heard the news and he thought he was not hearing right. So he put a full tank. Then the taxi driver said, "But I didn't say full tank." He said, "Just go. It's okay. Just go." Then he said, "No, just go." But then both of them were sort of, and my mother was also in that same funk, except me. So then news had already filtered in the Air Force that there had been an accident. They had accounted for everybody they needed to account for because the three of us, the three women lived in the Air Force, two others lived outside because the air crew had 5.
Yeah.
So myself, Mrs. Nambote, Mrs. Mahoney lived in the camp. Mrs. Nambote worked as a teacher. Mrs. Mahoney at the city council, they had picked up already. And then they didn't know where I was. There were no cell phones.
Yeah.
So now everybody was panicking because now they couldn't go to my home before I got there. And then they didn't know where I was. There were no cell phones. They went to look for me at my mother's. I wasn't there. And then my mother was not on cell phone. No one had a phone.
No.
So now.
Different times then.
Yeah, there were no phones. So fortunately, we were driving home. I mean, we had bought the basin and we're going home. So we get to the gate at Zaflusaka. We found everybody had been waiting. My neighbor was a nurse. Mrs. Fulilo was a nurse. She was waiting because she used to check on me every so often. So immediately she saw me. I don't know what they had told her to do with me. She couldn't even do anything. She just poured out. My mother also was taken somewhere else. Then it was now time for people to deal with me. I think I was hospitalized for a few hours, but I didn't even know why I was hospitalized. They kept me in the clinic, I think, for a few hours, then took me home. But even when I got home, I mean, so what was going on? I was still very blank. I mean, so what's going on? What could have happened? The TV was on, people were watching TV, people were crying, they were wailing, but I was still very disconnected from everything that was going on. And it was happening in my home. Oh, well, 5 days later, I think. It happened on the 28th. I think by the 2nd, they were brought back. 3rd, we were going to Bari. They said I couldn't go. They thought I was too advanced to go to Bari. I said, no, I'm going to Bari because I was still disconnected.
Yeah.
I said, I am going to go.
Let's just pause right there. So at that point, you had heard the news that something terrible
yes,
had happened.
But it had not registered.
How was it delivered? How was the news delivered to you?
I mean, it was there. The accident had happened, and I was watching TV as well. People said your husband was also on the plane, and I think he has also died. I said that.
So can you just tell us about your husband? Who was he, and what was he doing there?
He was a pilot.
And what was his name? For those who do not know.
Victor. My husband was Victor. He was Victor. He was Victor Mubanga.
What happened prior to that, a few days before that? I know you've intimately shared with me a few days before he left, he seemed to be frantic, making sure everything was planned for you.
Oh, yes. He talked about leaving. He talked about not leaving. He talked about leaving and not leaving because I was due. And it was rather there was a lot of discomfort on his part.
Why?
So I don't know. He was just very uncomfortable. He was extremely uncomfortable. But then he said, you know what? If you are going to go to hospital, maybe I will not be around, but I know that I will leave somebody to escort you to hospital. And that's the Norman that was supposed to escort me to hospital, Norman and Leah. Norman, Leah, and Ian.
Yeah.
But then he said again, he said, I'm not sure. You might not, but futi limbuka ndolele fie.
Yeah, I remember he said, this is Lieutenant Colonel Victor started saying by around this time 29 years ago, which was yesterday, he walked home. He walked home, and 6 times he called the landline, twice to say goodbye, before finally he came in and stood on the window and said, "Lekanjite Norman Sumbwe." Na Ian Chimpampwe, Nalia, so that I give them instructions about how to take you to the hospital in case you go into labor before I come back. Though I know I will be back before you go into labor, still, then he put on his Ray-Ban shades, those swag kind of sunglasses. Then he, after giving them instructions to withdraw money for yourself from Zanaco, it was around about payday. He has been gone for 29 years, and you're still waiting.
Yes.
How does it feel?
Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, the worst thing that has happened to us is not knowing what happened.
Yeah.
We have lived in suspense to a point that we actually believe our imaginations. We have imagined a lot of things and come to believe our imaginations. We have searched the width and breadth of this world trying to find answers on our own.
Yeah.
We have harassed nearly every government that has come into power from 1993. But still, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
We didn't, most of us, we share the same stories from the widows that from the time this thing happened. I think most of us didn't sleep for a good 10 years. Personally, I didn't sleep for 10 years. 10 years straight, like seriously. First, I had a bout of alcoholism.
Yeah. How did that come about?
So now, fast forward.
Let's not fast forward. Let's not fast forward. There's a whole lot to this story. So let's go all the way back. So you hear the news, no one tells you, but you just hear the news on the radio and everyone is talking about. And Ponga Liwewe, we've become quite close with the Liwewes now. He's quite integral to your story.
Oh, he is.
So? How so? How did that come to be?
Ponga Liwewe actually took over his father's shoes automatically. Yeah. The accident happened, and Ponga was very good friends with Wisdom Chance, I think, from the Copper Belt. But then Ponga, just after the accident, he just became
Dennis.
an uncle and now he became more than that. He actually became an uncle and father to our children. He was our brother. He's been our brother, uncle, father. He's been, look, this is a figure. When you talk about Gabon without Ponga in it, and I mean it, Linda, when you talk about Gabon without Ponga in it, will be pure ingrates.
Yeah.
You know, our kids came to know what a hotel looks like from Ponga. This is a
Really?
guy who used to come from wherever he came from, checks into Intercontinental Hotel, and we endeavor to call anybody who's going to, amongst us, whoever picks up the phone will find themselves at the hotel with the children. Even 10, 12, 15 children, he will accommodate them. He's made sure to check on all of us individually, group, whatever. He'll find out how we're doing, where we are at with life, and things like that. I met him today and I still reminded him. Personally, I did. Personally, I am very grateful to a lot of people. I have not forgotten them. I have not forgotten their names. I have not forgotten the role they played. I have not forgotten nothing. I remember everything like it happened a minute ago. There's so many people, Linda, we have not spoken about, people that raised us from the ashes. At some point, we need to talk about those people.
We will talk about those people. We will talk about these people. I just wanted us to take a little break and talk about Ponga just to compose ourselves. Now let's go back. So you are heavily pregnant, just very close to due date, like a week before you were due or something. And let's pause a little bit about your story just to take a breath. And there was another woman involved. A story that you wanted to zero in a little bit. A friend of yours, a very close friend of yours, a woman who was married to Timothy Muitwa at the time. Can we just talk about her for a minute?
Cleopatra Muitwa. Cleopatra Muitwa and I went to primary school together.
Yeah.
Her elder sister was our teacher. She lived with her elder sister. She was my close friend.
Just a second, sorry. I'm just getting messages. The internet is buffering. I'm just going to change my gadget slightly. Carry on talking. For some strange reason, I think it's a very unusual day. This is probably why all this crazy stuff is happening. Carry on, Cleopatra. Viewers, if you're just joining us, we're talking about the Gabon air disaster, commemorating the heroes that perished. And tonight, this is going to be a series of stories, very difficult stories. And these stories are kind of intertwined. But today we're focusing on Pamela Mubanga, whose husband was the pilot who was flying that plane, that ZAF plane, on that fateful night or day at the coast of Libreville, Gabon. So we're now zeroing in on a story of a young woman who was equally pregnant. So 3 stories we're focusing on: my mother's story, and Pamela's story, and Cleopatra's story. Now let us tell you a little bit about Cleopatra's story before we focus too much on our stories. Yes, you were saying Cleopatra.
So Cleopatra's sister was a teacher at the primary school Cleopatra and I went to. So we get to grade 7. I go to a secondary school in Lusaka. She goes to a secondary school in Kabwe.
Yeah.
We lost contact up to the time we finished school. Cleopatra and I got married immediately after we left school. Like immediately after we left school.
Yeah.
We left school in 1989. By 1990, we were married. I got married to the guy that flew us to school. She got the guy that flew us back from school, from finishing school.
Yeah.
She got married to a guy who she met when she went to watch football immediately after she left school.
Yeah, and this is where the bizarreness of the whole story comes in, because I had 2 dads. My first father, my biological father, who died, who was killed by a landmine, and his brother adopted me. And this is the brother who was mentoring all these footballers. And Timothy Mwitwa, who is Cleopatra's husband, they were linked with my father. We didn't know this. We met over 10 years ago on social media, and our stories are kind of interlinked, aren't they? Carry on.
So so we went away. We went our separate ways. She went to school elsewhere. I went to school elsewhere. We got married immediately after we finished school, and then the accident happens. Remember, I was expecting, and they said I couldn't go to the burial because they were not sure I was going to make it. She also was almost not coming for the burial because they thought that she was due, and anything could have happened at the stadium. But then
anything
on the other end
happened at the stadium.
So they almost refused me. They almost refused her, but I insisted. She also insisted, and we met at the stadium and sat next to each other. She came with a friend of who's now a friend of mine called Emma, and we sat together.
Yeah.
So we even greeted because we were sort of blankish. We even greeted, and then on the day they were burying, she went into labor.
Yeah.
And she left the stadium. I buried, went home, waited another month before I gave birth. She gave birth on the 3rd of May, I think. I gave birth on the 4th of June. Then here. So
where?
In Lusaka. So now, remember, she went into labor at the stadium.
Yeah.
She was originally from Kawe, but she went into labor at the stadium.
As they were putting the coffins down into the grave.
She went into labor. Yes. She went into labor. So now, I waited another month. So I give birth. Then an association, I don't know whether it was formed, it had already been there, we didn't know about it. An association came on board, Zambia Association for Research and Development. They came on board. This is Sarah Longwe, Judge Elizabeth Muyovwe. I remember Florence Chola was on the Copper Belt. There was a Mrs. Siame from Lusaka. I can't remember the other people, but I know them if I saw them.
President of Zambia.
Who's this one?
The lawyer.
Oh, okay. He comes. No, that one comes later on. These ones came immediately after we had delivered. These are women who came to lift us up before we even talk about the lawyer and everything else. Remember, we were now mourning.
Yeah,
we were still mourning. Yeah, we're still mourning. So these women came on board. So Sarah Longwe, Mrs. Siame, and Judge Elizabeth Muyovwe here in Lusaka. Florence Chola on the Copper Belt with other ladies taking care of the Copper Belt ladies. So these women this association arranged that we all meet, all the widows must now meet, all the families must now meet, but they concentrated on the widows. Yeah. So now, remember, Cleopatra came from Kawe, so it was near Lusaka. So now, the first person that Cleopatra met was me. We remembered ourselves again, and because we had.
Cleopatra was.
Hello.
Just remind our viewers who was Cleopatra.
Cleopatra was Timothy Mwitwa's wife.
Yeah.
So they came from Kabwe warriors, so next door to Lusaka here. So the first people that we met, us from Lusaka, the first people that we met were the girls from the Copper Belt. So coincidentally, each one of us in the group had somebody that they immediately got along with. But with me and Cleo, it was automatic because we used to be friends as young people, and now we had met in this circumstance. So we just got back to our friendship, and we had small babies. So Judge Muyovwe was assigned to me Mrs. Siame was assigned to Cleo, and I think Sarah Longwe was overseeing everything that was going on. So now Cleo and I had babies a month apart. We had postnatal depression together. We couldn't breastfeed. We were not eating. We were not sleeping, and we couldn't hold our babies.
No. Can you just
Properly.
pause there, Aunt Pam? Can you just tell me how the women tried to help you to cope with postnatal depression? That wasn't a thing, by the way. Postnatal depression is a thing. We're African women. We give birth on the side of the road in bushes. We are not supposed to be wallowing in our own sorrows. How did they try to help you?
The Zambia Association for Research and Development tasked themselves with knowing the widow's welfare vis-a-vis the relationships with the in-laws. Most of us had serious problems with in-laws. Some people we still don't talk, like we'll never talk again because of so many misunderstandings that happened then. Most of us were actually denied. There were people who stood up and said, "This is not my in-law," and I wasn't alone.
Can you explain why? What happened?
4, 5, 6. I don't know. This accident has a lot of undercurrent.
Because there has been stories like, oh, you are not the legitimate person to be claiming.
There were so many stories like that. So many stories like that. People that
grieving?
Hello?
Is it just people grieving and blaming? Because now, if I pause you momentarily there, go back to my mother's story. 21 years old. No, my mother was 19. My father was 21 years old. Killed by a landmine. They had only been married 3 months, and she was pregnant with me. So he died when she was only 3 months pregnant. So that is pretty earlier on. And family members started making different assertions that, are you even sure that's our child? Stories like that. And this is where you felt like my mom's story resonates with yours a little bit. And the pain that's carried on, wrong decisions that you made, that my mom made, and the eventual fate, my mom's fate, and what has happened to you and your friend. How do you think that tallies? So these 3 women, as we were saying, viewers, if you're just joining us, we're talking about the Gabon air disaster, and we're going to have a series of stories that are interlinked. 3 women, 2 who knew each other. The other one, they had not met, and they'll never meet because 2 are dead, actually, sadly. But their tragic lives are kind of interlinked, and we're just discovering this now. So how do you think your lives, the 3 women's lives, how are they linked? Apart from the obvious tragic, but in terms of other things, how do you think you are linked?
I think besides the accidents, we could be one person, actually. We could be one person, and we could be one person, and from these 3, me, the survivor, I've carried everybody's persona.
You are the
Linda,
survivor.
Yes, I'm the survivor. I am. I think I have got parts of me that are these women, but I jumped off ship.
Yeah. How did you do that?
Look, in life, you must speak to the person you are looking at in the mirror. And I've done that several times. People will not understand, but I've done that several times to get myself out of a rut. I have never sat down to talk about my problems. I talk to the mirror.
I know you have. and I'm so grateful. This is an exclusive interview. You're speaking about your experiences for the very first time, 29 years later. What did you say to yourself that the other women did not say to themselves in the mirror?
I'll give you an example. After we met the women from Zambia Association of for Research and Development, Cleopatra and I didn't eat. We didn't sleep. We didn't look. All we wanted was Olsons. We wanted to drink Olsons. Wanted to drink Mosi.
Also,
We drank Mosi day and night. I mean, that's the only thing that made sense. We needed to drink something to sleep, and I don't know. We're convinced we needed to drink, and so we drank ourselves a stupor. I don't know how many times we drank and drank. At some point, I'm sure people just thought, look, we're just drunkards. But then we had everything, we're camouflaging. We talked about everything except what was going on. But personally, I had another friend of mine that I spoke to. And when I'm not drinking with Cleo, I was speaking to Joyce Chabala. Joyce Chabala.
Chabala's wife.
Yes,
And
she's
those are the people who hang out in my father's house, you see. So
yes, this is
that. What did you say to her? What sort of conversations did you have?
Joyce Chabala and I have had conversations from the day we met. From the day they got us together, I knew that talking to Joyce Chabala would ease my pain. Something about her. One, when we drank, she never drank. She was very angry for the longest time. She lived in a lot of pain, but she prayed. She prayed a lot. Whatever you do, at whatever time, she must find the space somewhere to just pray. But then I was with Cleo, we're drinking. So Joyce, with her pregnancy also, she was still pregnant then. She only gave birth in September of that year. I thought that time, no one was looking out for the other. But look, I knew that Joyce had something for me. And when we have a moment together, we would have conversations about how angry we felt, how shortchanged we felt about things. But then that was it. Then there was also Doreen Makinka. Doreen then, she presented very strong to me, presented really, really strong. She was actually, she did a good job of hiding her pain.
Debbie Makinka's wife.
Yes, she's late now. So yeah, we're talking about the three ladies. So I had an outlet. These two didn't have.
What was
they didn't have? My outlet was the mirror. The mirror, talking to the person in the mirror. The person in the mirror was me.
How did you know how to do that when other women didn't?
No, you see, I would be walking and talking to myself. And the moment I say no, that was it. I've walked away from a lot of things with just no. No from me, not from anybody else. I don't remember going to sit down with anybody to talk about me. I'll listen to other people. I'll never talk about me. I'll never talk about how much pain I carry. I have personal problems that have really thrown me in the dump. It's only when I grew older that they almost got to me. But the moment I said, this will not happen in my space, I pick myself up. So these two ladies, they stuck around their problems for too long. Problems which can actually eat you, swallow you, and yeah, you never come back from that. I refused. I simply refused. So each time this problem moved closer to me, probably I'll find new friends. People who don't talk about problems. You know, I got out of this space which was negative. They never got out. Cleo didn't get out of her problems. This is a friend of mine.
Tell me more about Cleo. Who was she? Start from the beginning.
Cleo, this beautiful girl called Cleo, was married to Timothy. They had their first child called Timothy as well. After the Gabon accident, she was given a job at Ministry of Youth and Sport. She was okay in the beginning. In the beginning, we had Zambia Association for Research and Development. We had a Gabon fund, which was run by George Sokota, Ed Hamakoa, I remember, late David Peary, and I don't know who else. We had that fund, money which was raised by the world for us. So we used to get paid every so often at Meridian Bank.
Mm-hmm.
So we were liquid for the longest time, and Cleo was okay with that at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Then as time wore on, that money finished. Then we started a new fight with government where Cleo was not involved. She clearly told me that she couldn't do this. She didn't have the energy to do this. So each time I go to these meetings, I'm the one who had to come and tell her what had happened. So we started out as a group, but along the way, most people fell off. Remember, there were 30 of us fighting. 30 as in parents and widows. There were some families who actually managed to ward off the widows, and they shunted them, they made them girlfriends and things like that, and then they just fell off. So 30 families were fighting this battle. But I remember from the 30 of us, Doreen, may her soul rest in peace, she pioneered this fight with government. But she died before we even did anything. She died early on.
Doreen was married to who?
To Debbie McKinka. So when Doreen was around, it was Doreen's show. I mean, we'd just sit there and wait for Doreen to come and tell me and Cleo. When Doreen passed on, I remember telling myself that I had to join. I needed to hear what was going on, and from there on, I was a constant with this matter. Cleo refused to be part of it. Refused. She just refused. She told me point blank that she didn't have the energy for such matters. But it was okay. So later on, we didn't have the money. We didn't have the money that we used to get. It was now time to get on our feet. We drank, but we drank, but even when we didn't have money, we drank. But slowly, I was getting out of that habit of drinking. She wasn't. Then I knew when she stopped going for work that she had developed depression. Now it had sunk in that she lost her husband. It was something like 7-8 years later. That's when she realized she had lost her husband. Then she developed depression. Hello? She developed depression. Yeah. There were days on end she didn't go for work, and each time I was told that she's not going for work, I'd follow her, go and get her out of home, take her back for work. Yeah, she goes back for work again. The same cycle will repeat itself. And at some point, I even told Ponga about Cleo. I said, you have to speak to her. She has stopped going for work. She needs to go back to work. He tried speaking to her. She went back to work again until finally, look, I found something else to do. I wasn't looking at Cleo. I feel very guilty about that. I wasn't looking at her now. I was looking out for myself as well. Now I had to pick myself up. I weighed a measly 60 kilo, maybe 54, 60. I was growing older, but I was underweight. Yes, and then I had a child that I told myself had to go to a good school because he didn't have a father. Imagine, that's what I told myself. I said, because he doesn't have a father, I'm not going to put him in a mare school. He had to go to a good school so that I compensate my mind for the loss that I had, that he didn't have a father. So every little bit of money that was paid to me went to school fees for this boy who went to probably 7 schools. He went to 7 schools because, yes, he went to 7 schools in primary school because I couldn't afford school fees. I wanted him to be in a good school, but each time I couldn't afford school fees, but I'll still keep him in school. So he started out with Lumuno, went to Rhodes Park, went to Lake Road, went to Italian school, went to Our Ladies, I think another school, and then he went to international school. That was the last school that he went to. International school had a very good headmaster who listened to my story over and over. Even when I couldn't pay school fees, he was listening to my story. So this boy finished his primary school at international school, then went to secondary school at international school. The last week before he wrote his grade 12 IGCSE, he had not finished paying school fees. They said he couldn't write. I said, that's not a problem. I didn't even wait for the problem to hit me. It was a big problem. I didn't have the $2,500 then, maybe in 2010 or something like that. I said, it is not going to eat me. Quickly, I got him out of ISL and took him to Lusaka Learning Center to go and write the same IGCSE. I found money to go and pay for just writing exams. He went and wrote exams. He passed. Then, in my stubborn way, I came back to ISL and told the school that he had to do IB1 and IB2. By hook or crook, he had to be in school.
So the IB, and to Pam, the IB, that's the International Baccalaureate. That is wildly.
Yes. Because now my eye was on him going to a university in the UK.
Yeah.
So how does he go to university in the UK? So I had to take him back, even just for pride for myself. I had to take him back. I took him back in the school. And yeah, he passed. And yes, he went to University of Kent in Canterbury.
That's my University of Christchurch. Yeah.
Yes. He went to school.
So bizarrely, our lives are intertwined. It's the most bizarre thing like ever. Yes. And
so now I was doing those things. My friend Cleo was not doing those things. She wasn't speaking to herself. She didn't know what to do with her son. When somebody presented an opportunity to get the boy to take him to South Africa, she just said, okay. And the boy went to South Africa.
Okay, pause right there. Now, the actual story is Cleo was in such a rut, unfortunately made some unfortunate decisions and decided to have her son adopted. And this is not like a blame game. It's just because a very sad thing happened to her. And this is what happens to most people. If you don't have anyone to actually speak positivity into your life, or you can't speak positive things into your own life, you start making a series of unfortunate decisions. And she decided to have her child adopted to someone in South Africa.
I think a pastor in a church. Very good people. Very good people. I've met them before.
And then what happened?
Very good people. Yeah, the boy was gone. He went away to South Africa. She remained, but then I think that also got to her somehow, but she couldn't tell anybody. So she just went down. She went down. Next, I was called. She had died.
How did she die?
Circumstances to date, I've never understood them.
But what was?
I think she had left employment. She didn't have accommodation, and I think she just lost it.
She died in a ditch.
I know. I mean, there were times. The story that I heard was that she didn't have where to stay. Actually, now that I'm talking about it, I will have to sit down with her sister to find out exactly what could have transpired. Because when we were going to Bari, I was told that she was found at I don't know whether it's Chilenge police.
Sad. And how do you feel about that? You could have done something.
I would have easily been clear if I had not spoken to the girl I used to look at in the mirror, who was me, the other me.
How old were you at the time? How old were you?
When the accident happened, I was 22.
Yeah. So you were all in that similar age group, 21, yes. 19, 20, 21, 22.
I am 51.
So young. I often ask myself at the age of 21, 22, the last thing in my mind was marriage, later on having a kid, later on being a widow.
In our time, 22 was actually 19 was the best time to get married.
Yeah.
In our time, 19 was the best time to get married.
At the time, I was thinking I want to get a degree, go traveling, work abroad. And you guys
No.
were widows.
Us, we had to get married. We were widowed. So my friend Cleo died, and she died. She died, and yes, I feel guilty sometimes because maybe I should have been firmer with her, but then it meant leaving myself behind.
But you were young. This is where I say,
yes,
at that age, what decisions was I making? I was pretty decent 21-year-old, but I would not be thinking, I need to be looking after another human being. I was thinking, I need to get my qualifications, I need to work abroad, I need to travel, I need to see the world. But you were faced with such ridiculously hard decisions to make. And you're thinking, I need to look after my friend as well. And then when you see yourself, you are alive, the other women are not alive. What goes on in your mind?
Well, I still remember me. I still remember me. I still remember talking to myself. I know that it's the other me, the strong one, that has kept this one that you people see. There's another me in me that is actually very, very strong. And that other one actually, it takes, I don't know what it would take to bring me down.
Once he was like, I've had a lot of people from the BBC, from Al Jazeera, speak to me about doing this interview, and I said
and
no.
I refused.
Why?
Yes.
Me telling your story.
Look, that me that I normally speak to is now ready to talk about a lot of things. It's no longer. Look, there was a time that it felt like it was actually very shameful.
Yeah.
A lot of people won't talk about the turbulence in their lives because it's to a certain extent, it's like it doesn't feel right. I shouldn't be talking about these things. So yeah, I'll just go home and I'll just go home, jump into my bed and cover my head and sleep, cry myself to sleep.
Yeah.
I can no longer do that. I'm not at that stage anymore. I was at that stage where I thought if I went. I have never sat down to talk about this with anybody.
I know.
I'll be lying. The only person that I speak to about this is somebody who has also lost from the Gabon disaster.
Well,
Joyce Chavala. Yeah. Joyce Chavala is one person would be on the phone for hours talking about it, talking about the people. We've met a lot of people in the past 29 years. Very nice people, very cruel people, very sober people. We've met all kinds of people. Yeah. But in it all, because we spoke to each other, we thought these ones, their time will come. But I can't imagine how it would have felt if it was just me who lost a husband, and then I got to meet all these people who say all kinds of things. I remember one time somebody even told us when we were making noise at Cabinet Office, somebody even told us, but why do you come here? You are not the only widows in this country. There was a Mufulira disaster. Meantime, we're not even looking for money. We were saying, can you tell us what happened? Yeah. They thought we were looking for money. Somebody was cruel enough to actually just tell us off. You know, I think in his mind, he said, let me say it as it is. I don't know what would have happened if we had stood with that guy today. Now that I'm 51 and I've got this different me that I will not even let anybody cross to the other side, telling me all those kinds of things. What actually another thing that saved me, Linda, was the age. I was young and naive. So it took me a long time to process what had happened. So yeah, it was at some point, it was like I was not part of the problem. No, I wasn't. Me, I needed to go out there, go to disco, party, drink, forget about the problem. But I could see Mrs. Mohone, Mrs. Nambote, those were not young. They were very angry with what had happened. They were already 50-year-olds. They had children. Yeah. They had lost husbands, and look, to them, life had just come to an end. And each time you're moving with them, you could see that they wanted nothing. They just wanted to go home, yeah, and just cry and whatever. And we didn't understand. We thought, but why do they do this to themselves? Yeah, because we thought, look, we can come out of this without doing this to yourself. But now I understand exactly where they were at.
Yeah. Now, as a young woman, if there's a young woman out there who has lost a husband at the age of 19, 20, 21, up to 20, or even that in their 30s, what advice would you have for them? How do you move on when you've lost the love of your life, you've lost your soulmate?
Number one, don't allow strangers you didn't live with to come and tell you what to do in your yard. It doesn't matter what relationship anybody has with the deceased. They should not come and dictate to you. First things first, you've got to secure your space.
How do you do that? It's easier said than done.
No, you've got to stand up. Don't lie on that mattress for too long. Don't. The last thing that you should do is to allow people to come and manage your affairs. You are dead. That's the first point of death for you. The moment you allow people to come and dictate to you, you are gone, gone, gone. It is very painful, but I would rather remain in my home with the door closed, crying with everything that we owned. I must tell people what we owned. I must tell people our affairs. You know, we've got a very archaic law about this administrator thing. Some things need to change.
Okay.
Some things need to change. This business of people, you know, I still feel very hate about what happened to a lot of us. This business of people walking into your yard, wanting to dictate. They even want to know how much your pots cost. What is that? Then when it comes to these administrators, you have these administrators who are in it for themselves. They're never in it for the deceased beneficiaries. They're in it for themselves.
Yeah.
It looks like most people do not even understand why they're administrators. Administrators today, the first thing they're going to think about is securing their family, their homes where they're intact. They've got their wives or husbands at home with their kids and everybody else. They want to take advantage of you who has lost a husband or wife, you know, to want to dictate, to find out how much money you have, how much what you have. They even start driving your car.
Yeah. I've got a few people in the background. Yeah. I've got a few people in the background really eager to join in, but I still want to tell you a story. And please hang on, the people who are in the background and people who've got questions. I know it's a very important story, but we want to hear Aunt Pam's story and then move on to what everyone else has to say. People are literally itching to get on. Now, administrators. I remember going to Chiwombo. One of my aunties had passed away, and it's the last time I'd gone to Chiwombo in when I was where I could remember. A long time I would go with my grandmother. We used to go for holidays, and she was very keen on me learning the language, and it was amazing. But the last time I went there, it was my father's sister who had passed away, and we went for this traditional ceremony where literally it was insane. I was absolutely flabbergasted at how greedy human beings can be. They were like vouchers. Literally grabbing every shred of a thing that a human being possessed. It was, and this lady had left children. Some of them who are watching right now, my sisters and brother, my aunt Manfreda, who I was very fond of. When my dad had died, and my mom left me with my grandmother. I had an aunt who was like my mom, and this is the woman. They literally took everything.
And you see, to date, we have those stories. Today, we have such stories. If there are stories that boil my blood, it's these stories. You know, one of my late husband's relatives, we don't talk because I'm sure she went and told the rest of the family funny stories, and yet all they wanted was to grab what I had. They took me to several police stations and everything else. But look,
Why?
when no, I mean, according to, I don't know, according to her, I was not married to, I don't know, her relative or something. I don't
Like you're
understand.
not
But
legally
anyway,
married. So this is a
29
story.
years later, 29 years later, I really, really don't care.
Yeah.
That's why I am saying, if
This
you
story is
lost
out
a
there.
spouse today,
Yeah.
if you lost a spouse today, the last thing that you must do is allow vouchers near you. It doesn't matter how related they are to this person. Don't allow them near you. You must stand your ground. Whether you were married or not married or whatever it is, first things first, secure yourself. Other things, if it means going to court, let them go. Let the court go and decide your status or whatever it is. But people must not just walk in and get everything and forget about the children, especially people who forget about the children. Linda, a lot of children today don't know where they come from because they were raised by single mothers like me, for example. And then you have children who don't know where they come from because they don't know what transpired in the past. So they find themselves in this shenanigan of where people just, people lost each other along the way and the children get affected. And yes, it's business as usual. I really boil when I think about what happened to a lot of us. And many others. There's still people today in 2022 who tell you stories of in-laws came and took over my house. In-laws came, took my title deeds. In-laws came and insisting that I should show them the bank accounts. In-laws came. This in-law thing should have limits when this person dies. It doesn't mean you must now come and collect things that your in-law and your relative acquired.
So, I know. We're going to take a break. Pause for a minute and we'll have a look at comments from the viewers. So someone, Akangwa Shimba, this is whose wife? This was the pilot, the wife to the pilot who was driving that ZAF plane on that fateful day at the coast of Libreville that crashed. This is heavy stuff, family. Then yes, it's very heavy stuff. Mary Kingdom changes this. My God, yeah, you can't believe you're crying. Cleo living by the railway quarters, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know what that means. Doreen, lovely lady. That's Debbie McKinker's wife. Is that?
Yes.
It was like Elizabeth when she met Mary. The babies leaped in her stomach. Okay, lovely. This is heartbreaking. 21 years later, no closure. Yeah, and that takes me to the next question I wanted to ask Auntie Pam. So you guys who are just watching, Auntie Pam and I met on social media several years back, and before we met, we just connected. We didn't even know this story. I think the details of the story came a few days ago, wasn't it? When you posted something,
Yes.
and I said, "Oh my God, what you just..." And you said, "It's like everything I was saying." You were like, I know," and I was like, "How do you know? You understand?" And we just connect on a completely bizarre kind of level. I can't even begin to understand that. 29 years later, no answers. This takes me to the next question. 29 years later, you still hurt. Do you think you've healed a little bit?
No.
Not?
No.
Why not?
No.
29 years is a long time.
I think
and healed.
It is a long time, but I think that we should have been counseled after the accident.
By who? Who do you think should have counseled you? You counseled yourself.
Somebody should have thought. No. Somebody should have thought. You know, this was a first in Zambia.
And you were
it
young,
was a first. Yeah. We were young. People who were not even connected to these people to date are still very affected. Now imagine us who were inside.
Yeah.
We were left to heal now. Yeah. People tried, but look, they could only do so much. But I want to think that we should have been counseled. The counseling should have been continuous.
Yeah. And this is
actually we've become angrier over the years.
Yeah. It's not too late. Because when I said
to get cancelled,
yeah, it's not too late. You remember we tried this, and I was like, I don't think I'm ready. You were like, child, you're ready. It doesn't matter whether you cry or not. And I was like, I cannot cry live on air. I can't do it. And you were like, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's time. So it's clear that you're ready to talk about this. I've never talked about this. It's just like
I know. Linda, we can't get cancelled now. We should have been cancelled. We have now become savages. For lack of a better term. Not like seriously. We now fight with bare knuckles. No, seriously.
Yeah.
We now fight with bare knuckles, and it stems from the anger that we've bottled over the years.
Yeah. And the tenacity that you build.
We fight with bare knuckles. Look, I can say anything to anybody. Now I can say anything to anybody without feeling anything.
Yeah.
Because I've been hardened. I've been hardened with the way people treat others. Actually, every after memorial service, we become different people. Because then we realize, oh, another year has gone. There's nothing. We've even stopped talking about going to a memorial service to go and talk about the report, because it's been rhetorically report.
Yeah.
Nothing changes.
Absolutely. Now, you have been literally talking to me step by step on what you're doing literally every hour, from hour to hour going. And how did the memorial service go? What was different about today?
Actually, today there was no memorial service per se.
Yesterday, what happened?
Even yesterday, there was no memorial service per se. I think this year, 29 years later, we just went to greet each other and came back.
So this is what I'm getting to now. For me, after we did a program on Dennis Lewell, who was an absolute legend, and Stuart, welcome to the program. You are muted.
Kiwi.
So now, this is the most. I know.
Thank
this is the
Linda.
most bizarre. This is like a woman who is in my life every second.
Hi, Auntie Pam.
Hi, darling.
Like every second of it, whether I'm teaching, whether I'm wherever, she's literally, I'm working, she's in the background. And I just came to realize that you two know each other. This is the most
very well, nice.
It's so mind-boggling. So I'll be close to you, Aunt Pam. She will tell me off if I say we grow up together. Grow up together,
I'm your mother.
She's my mother. But for better explanation, I would say we grew up. Okay, sorry, man. We grew up together. Cool understand, guys.
Yeah, we grew up together. Yeah, we did.
She raised you.
Yeah, and Chwe was obviously an auntie, sister-in-law to my father, but we grew up together. And we all went to different places. She now lives in Texas. She's like my confidant, my every. If you want to know all my secrets, she's the one. Don't you dare.
She's my sister. She's my sister-in-law. She's married to my brother.
It's so weird. I found out that you guys are like that. in the most
Yes.
peculiar way. So what's your contribution
Ah.
to all this?
Yes, my contribution on this, especially when it comes to people losing their loved ones, especially in Zambia and let me say Africa, we all just expect to just move on when you lose a loved one, you know. For the young widows, you know, they expect to just kind of like just get up and just move on, you know. That's where when I came to this country, I actually realized after having gone through a lot of losses in the family, I realized that going through counseling is one thing that everybody should do. And being a nurse here, when I retire and come back to Zambia, that's one thing I'm thinking of doing, like you know, having people go through counseling, because grief is one thing that, you know, it goes and it comes back. You have to go through all the 5 stages. Now it's different. You know, you'd start from maybe blaming yourself, then you kind of accept, then you go back to blaming yourself, you know, and it goes on and on and on. And being a young widow like Pamela, it's very difficult, even though she says that she doesn't need counseling. I really think she needs it. I know you said Mwalisango Kama Savage, but at one point, you might need to sit down, you know, sit down and go through it, because most people do not express their feelings at all. They don't. They just move on.
They just move on.
Yeah.
But I've got
Yes.
you. I express my feelings to you every second.
Every single day. Every single day we
every
cry.
single day, like
We laugh. We talk
we
about
laugh,
everything.
we cry. Yeah, we
Yes,
sing.
yes. And it has helped a lot, even with the
Yes.
losses, because
Yeah.
you know, Linda, as you know, we lost your father, then we lost Grace's husband in the space time of a week, you know.
Yeah.
And
And they were close as well. The two men
and
were
they were
very
close. Yes, yes.
Pamela. Yeah.
Yes, and if you remember, everybody was just crying. Oh no, you guys don't cry, and they won't let you cry. They won't let you cry for some reason. They say, don't cry, you know, you're not supposed to cry. I really feel that's the wrong way to actually look at somebody who's grieving. You have to grieve, you have to go through the process, and people eventually end up being something else. People become alcoholics, you know, because you don't have that closure. You have not really mourned your loved one. So that's one thing that I think should be done, especially in Zambia.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
You have something to add to what Antichua said?
Hi.
Do you have something to add
Hello.
to what Antichua said? And Pam?
I just I think like you, Linda.
Yeah, sorry, hold that thought. I'll come back to you just a second. And Pam, do you have something to add to what Antichua said?
No. I'll wait for Mula to say something.
Okay, carry on, Will.
So misheard there. Sorry. I was saying it's a bit funny. I think just like you, Linda, I got to know Auntie Pammy off social media. So and one of the things that I found very encouraging about her, even though I'd never met her, was that she's always positive, and that's what I've picked up from the story: that the positivity of, you know, encouraging yourself and not expecting other people to do it for you. I think for her, especially where she says, you know, secure your space, don't stay on that mattress. Nobody tells you this advice, especially when you've lost somebody, because you're there, and it's very easy for people to take advantage of things in your life and stuff like that. So I'm just really, I think I've just been really encouraged by the story, and I've watched and seen or followed your page, especially off social media, where you're always encouraging. And, you know, I think one of the famous ones is, if you don't wake up, you're not gonna eat. and I've loved that one because I think about that mantra. Yes. Absolutely. And there've been times where I don't want to wake up, especially when you run your own business. But when I read that, I'm like, you know what? Get up now.
You're like, I better get up. No, you better get up.
And I think that's your attitude, and I've heard that through even your entire story. So you're incredibly brave, and I think I'm super proud of you. And how you've
Thank you,
Mela.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mwelo. That's lovely, very lovely comment. think, and she were here. She's an expert. I think she needs to arrange therapy for all of us. She tells me this. I was like, hell no, I'm an African woman. I ain't going to therapy. You're my therapy.
But do you know something, Linda?
Yeah.
What Chiwe is saying is very serious.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know that in this part of the world, it's actually a taboo for a widow to pick herself up after 2 days? It's a taboo.
They think that that's some. But don't you remember? Caristo Chitampie's wife, when she lost her son, everyone was like, she had heels on, she had makeup on. People go through grief in different ways. I was disturbed about the whole thing.
And there are so many other stories like that. They feel that when you lose a spouse, you must actually die
with him. Yeah,
you must die. I think society believes. I've always said there's no society. Society is a lot of bad people strung together who bring others down. That's society. This part of the world, right now we are talking here, there's some woman somewhere who is going to sleep outside because her brother-in-law feels after her husband died, he must move into that house with his family. And then she must fend for herself. How she fends for herself, God knows. Meantime, this woman is going to go through all this grief. Tomorrow people will hear that she's dancing in a bar, not realizing that she's lost it.
Yeah.
She needs Chiwe to bring her back to order.
Yeah.
But we don't have those facilities. We don't have those facilities. We don't even have those people who cancel others.
Yeah, I've seen that.
we don't have those facilities. We don't have those facilities.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah. Texas.
We don't even have those people who are brave enough to just stand up and say, look, I'm going to go door to door. Even I am very guilty because my experience is supposed to lift 500 other women out there because, look, I'm not a pushover and I don't think I'll ever be. And I am not a pushover from my experience.
And Pam, you do.
I call a spade a spade. I am this energy I have. I'm actually supposed to give it out there to thousands other people.
No, but you do.
I do, but I'm very limited. Look, I do it on social media. There's those women who are not on social media who really, really need to hear this.
The truth is, you're not giving yourself credit. You do it off social media. We know that. So, yeah, we all know you do more than what you're just saying. We have a message from Masiliso Malani. But when will the investigation report ever be declassified and made available to the public? The surviving family members need closure. So do we as a whole nation. Now, this is where the whole program leads us to. This is a series of programs, and Pam's story is just one story, and we will be moving on to other stories, including people who were not directly involved. And Chiwe and I grew. She will tell me off camera. We grew up together. I'm saying this for the sake of people who don't know us. Okay,
that's fine. That's fine, Linda.
Yeah. So she understands my father was involved in mentoring quite a lot of the people who actually perished in this disastrous thing. And he was quite instrumental in their lives, not only helping mentoring them, but in many other ways. So we all need closure. We feel we've all lost. These are people who used to come to our house. Probably. Yeah. And with the mole powder, kuna imonish mo mona veni Debbie making kavais na powder ko mwafuman chan.
We did that. The entire nation lost, actually.
Yeah, and Dad was very strict. For us younger ones, we were like, oh, not allowed anywhere, these boys, you know. But some teenagers, Irene, my other cousin, you know.
Yes.
We'll get into that. But the serious thing is, and this is where my passion lies, I've got a cousin who's taken on the mentorship, literally has taken off from Dad's of mentoring the Mflira Wanderers, Katampanya, Wesley Mtembo. He's I can't remember what his position is in the Mflira Wanderers team, but he's helping. He's kind of just taking over Abute's role, isn't it, Andrew?
Yes.
Yeah. So now for me, the really big thing is for families to get closure. I think now the new government, I think it's imperative that we do something, we do our own investigation as a country. Like what happened in Nigeria. And we were heavily involved again because the doctor who died, we grew up together. I was telling the
Yes.
team that you sent me a photograph of me and you at a wedding with dad and Doc. Can you
Yes.
tell that story?
Yes, and that photograph was it was Kabungo, Dr. Kabungo's brother was getting married. Yes, and you and I were there, and and your father too, and we were there because we grew up together. We were like family, you know. Yeah, and for Dr. Kabungo, I went to school with him. We went to the same church, and I mean, we are really like close. So that photograph I sent you was when we were attending the wedding for his brother, his late brother Yoram. Yes.
And the funny thing is, Mwelwa's dad was the Bashubukombe on that wedding. I didn't know. I was young. I mean, I was standing there, take a picture, only to find out that this guy who's died were family friends. It's really sad. So that's how sort of intertwined Muflera is. And it's closure for the families who lost husbands like Auntie Pam or fathers like Auntie Pam's child. It's important that this really is done. But so, what do you think the government can do to help bring closure to people like you?
I'll tell you something. When it was 10 years post Gabon, we were told that this was secret until 25 years later. They said they could only tell us when it was 25 years old. When it was 25 years, we reminded them that you told us that this document was secret. So now, can you declassify it now that it's 25 years? People went mute. Remember that I think a number of people traveled to Gabon to go and gather this report, and they stayed in Gabon, if I'm not mistaken, for a whole year.
Wow.
Personally, I think we should not reinvent the wheel. Most people that went to Gabon to go and gather this report are still alive. Some people that we know. I know of people that I have found me. I didn't know them. They found me and told me what they found. I know of people today that were in Zambia then and live abroad and are somewhat connected to the Gabon and have had another version out there. You know, in this world, I don't think there's a secret. So I would urge the Zambian government to stop feeling sorry for us. They should stop feeling sorry for us. They should stop feeling that if they told us, that maybe they don't need to tell everybody else, but we need to know. We deserve to know. We need closure. We've never had closure. You know, year in, year out, we have the same story lingering. You can't do anything else without remembering that you still have this problem that remains unresolved. It's been very, very unfair to us. You know, children that were born in that year are now fathers. They've got their own wives. They've got their own husbands. Probably they'll be grandparents soon.
You know, closure.
Yeah, and then still there's no closure. A lot of my friends, the widows, they have died and left children. Look at these children; they are languishing. We're simply lost. We're just a lost lot. Yeah. We are lost. We are lost. Yeah. I mean, we can't be suspended for this long. It's torturous. It's actually torturous.
Yeah. Leah Chumzinga says, my late husband, ZNBC reporter David Likando, went to cover bringing back of the remains. He came home from work after the news broke out to tell me a young wife breastfeeding that he was assigned to fly to cover the bringing back home of the remains. I wept, begged him not to go because I was so afraid of losing him on a flight. to Libreville. This is really sad. So she was so afraid. And here's another lady who I've just met on social media as well. I don't know if Auntie Pam, you know, Valia.
Yeah, she's friends with a lot of my friends because my
Yeah.
friend is Emma Nakapizi. That's my friend every day. And I
Yeah.
think she's friends with Leah.
Yeah. So such a sad story because all these young wives were absolutely petrified of letting their husbands go. Now, in case of my mum, and well, how old was mum? 19, 20, something like that.
19.
19. And dad was 21. And the only remains they brought was part of his torso, like his foot and the bit of his ankle, isn't it? And it's only
Yes.
because mom had prepared socks for him. They were newlywed. They had not even finished opening the presents. And they had to be sent there, young brides, you know, to go and identify the body. So it was a catastrophe. It was an absolute catastrophe. She had to recognize her husband's foot because she prepared socks for him that morning. What did you identify and what came back from Libreville on that day?
His cup.
Wow.
Just his cup.
It was not given to us. Those remains were not given to us immediately. It took a while, a year or two or three, but only his cup. And I remembered his cup because he had written his name in it. Somewhere there was his name. But I remember one of the people, sorry, I'll say this today. I mean, look, what else can I say? One of the people that went to identify them had asked me what cigarette he smoked, and he smoked Peter. So he had Peter cigarettes in his shirt pocket, and then I think he had kwacha, like 100 kwacha or something. I don't know whether that man was trying to tell me that from those bodies that were picked from the sea, we could all see that people were not whole. I mean, there were torsos, there were legs, there were arms, there were.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he found him intact because I think he found cigarettes in his pocket. So I don't even know what that means.
So maybe he was afraid to say, "Oh yeah," because you know the culture again, cigarettes. You'd think, "Oh, maybe people will frown upon it." But I remember. This is another story that I would tell. This is a series of stories. My mom's story is just insane. I can't bring myself to telling it. But speaking to her just before she died, that experience of receiving her husband's remains as a young, I was trying to imagine where I was at that age. In what country I was working. Because for me, it was just career, get study and go abroad and work. For her, she was wife, expecting a child, only to be brought a piece of your husband. What was that feeling for you, Aunt Pam? What did you bury?
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know what piece of body you buried. Was there even a piece of it?
I don't know. I look, like I told you, we've had all these kinds of imaginations which we've come to believe. So we've come to believe that those stones we trek to every year has our husbands under there. Whether they are there or not, but just that stone with his name written on it has been consolation enough that maybe he came back. But honestly speaking, at the back of our minds, we know that there could be nothing also.
Could be. Shouldn't you know? You're saying
so. Faith takes us to the stadium. Nothing else.
But shouldn't you have been told what you're burying?
That's exactly. This is where we are today. We are here today because we don't know anything. We just move. We just move like. Look, I don't even know what I'm supposed to say, but look, Linda, we don't know anything. Somebody left home on a Tuesday. It was a Tuesday, I think. Somebody left home on a Tuesday and he was going for work.
Yeah.
It was normal to see him going to fly and fly back home. But this particular one, he flew and has never come back. And that's why I was telling you guys that I am still waiting.
He flew and never came back.
Yeah, for me, I'm still waiting. Not that.
When they brought the remains, what remains? What did they tell you? What remains are we bringing back?
Nothing.
You didn't ask.
Like they told the rest of the world that the bodies. I don't know what they meant by bodies. I don't know whether in each one they buried the clothes, whatever they found, anything that looked similar to the person that I don't know. I honestly don't know what the government did, but they buried something. Maybe they bought
that.
Linda, this has never happened. This has never happened before here. So naturally, everybody was just going with the flow. People were just, I mean, the government then of FTJ told us what they told us, and everybody was just moving. It's after everybody had left that we sat down now and we're asking ourselves questions which remain unanswered to date. It's 29 years later, we have the same questions. Children who were born in 1993 are 29-year-olds. They're old people.
Yeah.
They're older than us when we lost our husbands. But they also don't know anything, just like we don't know anything.
Do you feel guilty that for the sake of your husbands, your families, you should have found out at least for closure?
Do we feel guilty that what?
That you should have found out what is in those graves, what bits of the body, if there's anything.
Linda, I know probably 4 million people from the 18 million Zambians. This I can tell you. Why? Because from 1993, we have been to every president's office, every vice president's office, every defense minister's office, every youth and sport minister's office. We have been to every first president's office. Look, who haven't we met to find out? Who haven't we spoken to? People have even left office and we've followed them home. Someone is fired. I'll give you an example of when BY left office. We went to his Chadley home to just have a conversation with him. When FTJ left office, we went to his Sebo Road home in Kablonga to just have a conversation with him. The one thing that is an enigma for me is when we were fighting for the report, for compensation, for everything, our lawyer was President Edgar Lungu.
That takes me to the next question. So how did you come to engage former presidents of the Republic of Zambia into this case?
Let Doreen Makinka. I don't know where they met. I've never found out. I came on the scene 3 days, I think 3 days after she had met him. I don't know where they met, where she was advised that we had a very short window in which to sue before it expired. And that's how he came on the scene.
Okay.
He actually he didn't own a law firm. He worked for Andrea Macia. He was a lawyer in Andrea Macia's law firm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
he was just one of the lawyers.
Okay. How helpful was he?
During the time when he was lawyer?
No. What sort of services did he provide for you?
I mean, we had to take government to court to seek compensation. That is a story. That is a whole story for another day, Linda. It's a whole segment
of stories. Today we're just.
I was going to tell you something that has remained baffling me. Was he was president of the Republic of Zambia. Maybe our expectations were too high, but we felt that he should have, even for one day, stepped out of his comfort zone to just remember us and remember the battle that we went through in trying to push the government to tell us something. But we never got to see him. I don't know whether they didn't allow him to see us, because I don't know. I've heard that sometimes the aides won't allow people to see the president. I don't know whether it is that, or he himself just didn't feel duty bound to us. I don't know. I'll be lying. But I personally, I feel that he should have remembered us, even just for one minute.
What do you think this government can do to help? It's been 9 years. The evidence has been washed away. I'm beginning to track. This is why I'm writing a book, In Search of Aaron, try to discover what sort of life my father lived, how he got to die, and what happened. Because my grandfather was not in a position to kind of find out all these things. What do you think you need to do now to get closure for yourself and your child?
The current Minister of Youth and Sport is a very listening man. We have engaged him already. As families, we went to his office to speak to him about this. We went to welcome him because we've been in that office probably more times than he has. We went to tell him that we had met his predecessors and this is what we were following up. And we were hoping that he could also join in the fight and just help us get the report. Yesterday, he was on TV at 19 Hours News. He was telling the nation that at some point, when the report is available to him, he reads through it, he will communicate to the families. We just hope that it will happen soon. And we hope that that report will be given to him. We hope wherever the report is declassified. I have confidence. I don't know why I feel this feels different. I feel probably I'm not being political and I'm not being a cadre or anything, but I mean from the way people are carrying themselves, I don't think this is a president who wants to hold anything to himself. Anything that has to do with the people, he will give it to the people. Go and do whatever you have to do with this. He's not claiming ownership of this country. So probably this particular president is just going to tell us to say, look, come and hear it for yourselves. Maybe we pray so.
Do you know what? I'm very confident. I think
I feel confident too.
I can bet my left lung, which is a bit dodgy, on that. I can bet my left lung on that. I think we are in a completely different environment, and we have an honourable man at the home of government. And if they do, this is an interesting thing. We have a new breed of Zambians. If our leaders make mistakes, we're quick to point it out. We're not ashamed or too quick to point it out. I'm very confident that something will come to fruition in our time.
I feel so too. I have got confidence, especially that we had never met the Minister of Youth and Sport. He accommodated us when we went in our numbers, and I think from the way the meeting went, he's a man of his word, and I think he's very representative of the president, and I must say he represents him very well on that score. I don't know elsewhere, but I think on that score he does it very well.
Absolutely, we will keep an eye on that and report back. But I'm equally confident, like you are. Molo, do you have anything to add to that before we close?
Just that I think this is incredibly disappointing. I think for years, especially for the span that it has been,
29.
and 29 years is just so unbelievable that something has been classified, especially away from the family members that need a lot of the closure. And I totally get you and Pamela when you say we are savages, because it does trigger something in you. If we feel this just from listening to you, 29 years would make you really hard at heart. And I hope and pray that the government does come to fruition, that this thing just comes to an end, and it brings closure, especially to the children and the wives and the family members, because I think this is like holding ransom, and you're mourning constantly. And equally, I think the Ministry of Sports need to take seriously the day, because this has never happened. This is a one-off. This was such a big deal. I was very young, but I can remember the day that it happened. the silence of the nation, and everything just seemed like it had all come to a standstill. And I cannot believe that we
Yeah.
don't take this day as seriously. There should be a museum somewhere where we can remember every
Yeah.
individual on that plane and know who they were,
Yeah.
because sometimes we've belittled this to just the players. We don't look at the pilots. We don't look at the support staff that went with the team. We just say
Yeah.
the players, and those are the
Yeah.
names that we parrot off. But we never speak of the people that went there and lost their
Yeah.
lives in as support staff here. So we really need
Thank you.
this. I think the Ministry of Sport, especially, to take this a lot seriously. We need this in
Yeah.
schools. Children should learn about it, because those are people
Yeah.
that died heroes. They were not just, and they were working for the nation. I think that's the
Yeah.
importance that probably people lose out, that they were working, they were on an assignment on behalf of the nation, and we owe
Yeah.
them
Thank
that.
you.
I think that's
Thank
ability
you.
where we can owe them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anchue, you're muted.
Okay, there you go. Okay, and to the people who have lost, the people who are directly involved in this, somebody may come here and say 29 years, I mean, that's a long time. To them, it's not a long time. It feels just like yesterday, and especially that they have not gotten their closure. And as long as they don't get the closure, things will not be the same. So just like you said, Ms. Pam and Mwelwa said, I mean, the government need to look into this and see if these people, these families can get closure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
very
that's
much.
when healing starts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have, all of you, pretty much summed it up so beautifully. Glenda says, we need closure indeed. We have been kept in the dark for so long. My auntie has passed away, and we now have children, and some of our cousins have grandchildren, and nothing has come of it. All I can say is, those who neglect to learn from history are bound to repeat it. We have this tendency of being very forgetful as Zambians. Something happens within a nanosecond, we completely forget about it. These are human beings, these are people, these are husbands, fathers, our fathers, uncles, children. People lost their loved ones. And if we just skate over it and chuck everything under the carpet and forget about them, that is not good. We need to be able to remember our heroes. I'm really passionate about us celebrating our heroes whilst they can still smell the coffee, or whilst they can still smell the roses. When people are around, this is a good time to remember them. But if we have people who have died, like some of you have said, died whilst conducting national matters, it's imperative to remember them. We should have places where we can go and just mourn and just remember them fondly, and this should be enshrined in our history books. We're busy learning about what happened in Germany. I won't go into specifics because this could be quite political, but British history, German history, Bismarck, people can recite the climate of Canada. And I'm like, this is insane. We need to remember our heroes. We need to know those people who've sacrificed for us. Today or yesterday should have been, I'm not saying it should be a holiday, but every TV station should have been carrying stories, particular stories, each person zeroing in about their lives, who they've left, what they did for this country, how they sacrificed their lives. And I'll give an example, like my dad, he was a tiny, if he did not have me, his existence would have been in vain. No one would have even known he had existed, but he contributed to the country. Really important that we remember our heroes. On that note, thank you very much. God bless you and God bless our country. Good night.
Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night. Thanks.